Ms. Scannell.
No, she follows it. It's for you.
Okay.
All right. You presented yourself as a conservative right-to-life candidate in the Republican primary, but you changed your view to being pro-abortion, and now that I'm your opponent, you have gone back to being pro-life. How do you explain your flip-flop stance on an issue that is so important to many Alaskans?
Thanks for the question, Michelle. As somebody who is adopted and was raised by a loving family, I have been pro-life my entire 44 years of life. I have never flip-flopped on the issue, and I'm proud to be the pro-life candidate in District 20.
Ms. Scannell.
Now, here's the thing. When someone says whatever it takes just to get elected, that worries me. During this year's Republican primary, my opponent flatly stated that she would not have restricted her own mother's ability to choose an abortion. The only difference between now and then is her opponent.
Okay, let's leave it there. Ms. Costello, it is your turn to ask.
Thank you. Ms. Scannell, you describe yourself as a Tea Party Democrat, and I've never heard that term before. I thought this would be a good opportunity for you to explain to voters what you mean by that.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. What I mean by that is I have a strong belief in the rights to privacy, and I've been working with people since 2011 who also believe this issue, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. And these are the exact same groups of people that have formed the basis of the Tea Party movement that is shown and seen throughout the nation. So I have long-term links with people who have strong beliefs and worries about federal overreach.
Ms. Costello, 15 seconds.
Thank you. As a two-year legislator and someone who's hoping to get reelected, I've worked hard on economic responsibility, smaller, smarter government, making regulations in Alaska easy to understand. And if elected, I would continue those conservative values. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Scannell, your third question.
All right. A lot of people complain that our legislature spends too much money on pork barrel projects. A great example of this was your key support for the $2 million giveaway for UAA for free basketball tickets. When there are serious needs for basic educational services, why would you waste our money like that?
Thanks for the question. As a legislator, you get one vote on the budget, either yes or no. I did not put that project in the budget. However, I did vote for the budget. The projects that I put in the budget included drinking water quality studies for our district, improving or eradicating elodia in Sand Lake, safety improvements to our roads, and projects that were needed in our schools after I visited with the principals. And I'm proud of supporting those projects.
Ms. Scannell, 15 seconds.
All right. If we are not leading our nation in school completion and literacy rates, if we cannot afford to keep the teachers we already have employed, if we can't address the overcrowding of our schools, then we have no right to spend money on such irresponsible pork barrel projects.
Okay, Ms. Costello, we're back to you for your third and final question.
Thank you. Ms. Scannell, recently you were asked if you were voting for President Obama or Governor Romney. Have you decided who you're voting for, and can you share that with the viewers?
Absolutely. Well, I will be voting for president, and but this is a race about state house and state legislative issues. And the issue that is facing voters right now is how we want our resources to be spent. Do we want them to be squandered, or do we want them to be spent responsibly with an understanding of the future and the direction of our state and how we need to responsibly invest in our people?
Ms. Costello.
Thank you. Last night when Governor Romney was talking about innovation and economic growth, I was encouraged because House Bill 252 is just that. It provides opportunities for entrepreneurs and business people right out of college to start their businesses here in Alaska. So I'll be voting for Governor Romney.
Back to our panel. Daisha Eaton, your first question.
This is for Ms. Scannell. Each week soldiers are returning home to Alaska, and some are suffering from PTSD, others return home disabled, and some even take their own lives. What, if anything, should the state be doing more to support returning veterans?
This is a wonderful question, and this actually hits very close to my home. I'm the wife of a disabled veteran, and when I help and assist my husband when we go to the VA, I actually sit down and I talk with veterans that are in the waiting rooms to see their doctors, and I speak with their wives. So I know that they are all suffering and trying to get back into civilian life. And I think that we as a state, since we have the highest per capita of veterans, have a right, a moral and an ethical right, to make sure that the veterans and their families have programs and resources behind them to help ease back into civilian life.
Mia Costello, 30 seconds.
Thank you. My father served in World War II, and I certainly am appreciative of everyone who sacrifices on behalf of our country. I think some of the things the legislature can do is make it easier for people who are trying to get services through the state. I think that homeless veterans is an issue that we certainly need to address, because housing is the #1 concern before somebody can get their life on track. I think that we should support veterans and the families of veterans whenever possible, and I look forward to returning to Juneau in order to do that.
Let's return to Grace Jang.
This question is for Ms. Costello. You chaired the Finance Subcommittee reviewing the film tax credits bill, and you weren't a fan of that. Can you explain?
Well, thank you. That bill, or excuse me, that program had a lot of detractors and also people who were supportive of it. And as the chair of the committee that reviewed it, I wanted to hear all of the complaints and all of the things that people liked. It's a subsidy. I'm not a fan of subsidies, but what we did was we took that program, and after we worked on it in the subcommittee, we made it an Alaska jobs bill. So any dollar that a film industry will get is a dollar that will go directly to an Alaskan or an Alaska business.
Ms. Scannell, 30 seconds.
Fantastic. This is an industry, the film industry, that is vitally important to my specific district. When we've ever had a water scene shot for one of the movies that have come up here, it has always been Jewel Lake that they have chosen. So all the businesses in my district directly benefit from people buying coffees and buying food and et cetera. So the film industry is important to me for that reason. But also, this was a bill that was held hostage and by my opponent, and it almost didn't make it out of committee because of her lack of action.
Back to Daisha Eaton.
This is for Ms. Costello. There's a lot of talk in Juneau about developing resources in the far corners of the state. If you're reelected, what could you do from Juneau to help develop urban resources here in Anchorage?
Well, that's an interesting question. What I first thought of is that we do have some opportunities for the development of rare earth minerals. When you look at the markets in the world and what is needed in those markets, I think Alaska can certainly play a role. I think that the resources exist where they exist, and oftentimes we need to work with companies that are trying to develop those resources. Of course, they need to be developed responsibly, but the rare earth minerals and the opportunities that we have as Alaskans is very exciting, and I look forward to Alaska filling that role in the world.
Ms. Scannell, 30 seconds.
I'm so sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. There's a lot of talk in Juneau about developing natural resources in the far corners of the state. If you're elected, what could you do from Juneau to help develop our urban resources right here in Anchorage?
Once again, it's 30 seconds.
Thank you. So, mining is only 3% of our economy. I am a strong proponent of mining. I want to see it much more of our economy. I want to make sure that when we talk about mining that we keep the high standard of job safety that we have and not do anything that increases worker harm and prevents a lot of people from being able to kiss their husband and wives goodnight.
Grace Jang, your next question.
My next question is for Ms. Scannell, and actually I just want to clarify something because I'm not sure I understood your previous answer. Who are you voting for president?
Oh, I am voting for the current president.
Okay, thank you. So my question for you is, you have an ad on your website criticizing Ms. Costello, and it involves chickens, video of chickens.
Yes.
Can you explain that? And now that Ms. Costello is debating you, are you going to take that ad down?
No. That ad is calling her on the fact that she refused for 3 separate debates, one on which was on Dave Steeran's radio show, who is a very strong proponent of my opponent. And she still refused 3 separate debates that she declined to do one. So I felt compelled to bring that to the attention of the Alaskan voter, that if she's not willing to debate me so the voters have a better idea of who is going to represent their voice down in Juneau, then maybe she shouldn't be voted for in the first place.
Ms. Costello, 30 seconds.
Thank you. I am willing to debate. I am willing to talk about the issues, and I've attended debates where my opponent was not there. And I continued on door knocking and campaigning with my message, and that's how I'm going to run my campaign, in a positive manner in spreading my message to as many voters as possible.
Okay, now Dish Eaton will have a question for both of you, and both of you have 30 seconds to respond. You will go first, Ms. Costello. Dish Eaton.
Ms. Costello, healthcare is very expensive here in Alaska. Some people actually go out of state to see doctors and have treatments. What can the state do to provide more affordable health care for Alaskans in Alaska?
I mean, certainly it is a problem. It's $1.3 billion in the state budget, and we see that that number will be increasing. One of the things I think we can do is provide transparency. Oftentimes as a consumer, we don't know what will be charged when we go to the doctor. I know my family doesn't, and oftentimes there's a discussion whether or not to go at all because we don't know what will be charged. So I think that that's a first step. I also think that insurance companies should be encouraged to not require the full reimbursement that they are allowed under law, but do something that's more achievable for families.
Ms. Scannell, 30 seconds.
All right. Well, I think that in the future of our state health care, we need to first find out who is going to be winning the presidential election, because that will have a lot of determination as to what our health care system looks like going into 2014, 2013. And depending on that, if we do have a health care act, it is important that my voters vote for me, because I am the only person in our state house race who has a proven track record to prevent federal overreach and knows how to write policy positively and correctly.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to our closing statements with Ms. Costello going first for 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you very much for tuning in this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to share some of the positions that I think are important. As I've been going door to door and listening to voters, one of the things that I know is important to you is that I do listen. For the last 2 years, I've worked diligently in Juneau. I've worked to increase economic opportunity for young people who graduate. I've worked as a leader to make state government more transparent and easier for the average Alaskan to work with the government. I've increased vocational opportunities for our schools, and I've also responded to many constituent issues. I've funded projects in the district that needed addressing, such as water quality and safety of our roads. My husband and I are both lifelong Alaskans, and we're raising 2 boys here in Anchorage who are attending the public school system like my husband and I did. And I am truly honored to be representing you and would love to have your support on November 6th. My cell phone is 227-5276, and my website is votemia.com. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Scannell, your 1 minute closing statement.
Thank you. You have a real choice. There is a big difference between my opponent and me. You can either vote to cater to the oil industry and jeopardize our PFD, or vote for fiscal responsibility and discipline. I will fight for our fair share and ensure everybody benefits from our resources. My opponent says one thing and does another, but her actions speak louder than her words. Her vote to give away $20 billion of our state's revenue in return for nothing, not even a promise of development, is irresponsible. Alaska would have been left with decaying roads, schools, and public safety. If you want someone to bring real fiscal responsibility to Juneau, if you want a state rep who will work hard to make sure Alaska is a place where our families can grow and thrive, then vote for me. I'm the wife of a disabled veteran, the mother of 2 boys, and I'm Michelle Scannell, and the only special interest I serve is you.
Thank you, Ms. Costello and Ms. Scannell. Next on Running, we'll hear from the candidates, the Senate candidates from District K.